let's find the range of inverse sine of x plus inverse cosine of x plus inverse tangent of x. Now, let's first work with inverse sine and inverse cosine. Let's draw a right triangle. Inverse sine of x is equal to some angle, call it theta. That means sine of theta is equal to x. So let's call this theta. And sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So x is opposite, hypotenuse is 1. And now let's look at inverse cosine of x. So inverse cosine is equal to some angle. We'll call it phi. That means cosine of phi is equal to x. I can think of it as x over 1. So we're still using the same triangle. So which angle will give me cosine of that angle is equal to x? Well, if I use Pythagorean theorem, first of all, this is 1 minus square root of 1 minus x squared. And we want adjacent over hypotenuse. So what's adjacent to x? Which angle? Clearly, it has to be this angle. So now, inverse sine of x plus inverse cosine of x is the same thing as theta plus phi. But if you look at this triangle, we know that this is a 90-degree angle. And if I add phi and theta, I get 180, which means that phi and theta has to be 90. But now for us, we want to work in radians. So 90 degrees is equal to pi over 2. So this is kind of a proof to say that sine plus, or inverse sine plus inverse cosine is equal to pi over 2. And now we just need to look at inverse tangent. So for inverse tangent, the range is going to be between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So an inverse tangent is going to be increasing. So it's going to look like this. There's an asymptote at negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So the smallest that it's going to be is negative pi over 2, and the biggest going to be is pi over 2. But you want to be careful because you want to make sure that we're looking at the same domain. Now, there are some restrictions here. For inverse sine, the domain is between negative 1 and 1. But the range is between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. For inverse cosine, domain is still negative 1 and 1, but the range is from 0 to pi. And then inverse tangent, domain is negative infinity to infinity, and the range is negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, but make sure not to include those. So you want to look at where do they overlap. So inverse sine is the top one. Same with the inverse cosine. And then inverse tangent is everything. So the intersection is going to be over here. To be between negative 1 and 1. So the question is, what is inverse tangent doing between negative 1 and 1? Well, inverse tangent of negative 1 is negative pi over 4, and then inverse tangent of 1 is pi over 4. Now, we have inverse sine plus inverse cosine is equal to pi over 2. So we need to take pi over 2, subtract it with pi over 4 to be your minimum, which is pi over 4. And then pi over 2 plus pi over 4 will be your 3 pi over 4. And that's the maximum. So the range is pi over 4 to 3 pi over 4, and we have to include the endpoints.